first, it is all about the Red Devils. I did say before this that it felt like a must-win game for Manchester United. 3 match days in, up against Burnley. Words I never thought I would say, Janusz, but that's exactly what it came to. It felt like a must-win for Ruben Amorim. It felt like a must-win for Bruno Fernandes. It felt like a must-win for the momentum and the sanity of the club and its supporters after the week that they have had. And in the end, it wasn't pretty, but Manchester United get the 3-2 win, a penalty scored by their captain, Bruno Fernandes, much needed for him, but still a lot of questions in this one, Janusz. So we talk about this win and the significance of this result for United, feeling like a bit of a get out of jail free card for those involved there. But for you, did it feel like a must win for United, and did they pass the test?
I see why you're smiling about this. Look, first and foremost, you have to give it as a former player. I don't know how many positives comes out of that, right? I mean, we'll see. Winning does a lot, especially before international break, and that little bit of time where you hope that maybe a result like this that wasn't obvious, right? Because Burnley were in the game, so there's still a lot more questions than answers for me when it comes to Manchester United. We'll get to that, but in the end, a massive win. You can't look at it any other way. Yes, because it was a must win already. Because the conversation, had they even drawn this game, would have been very, very negative, and who knows, about Amorim and all the rest of it. So look, that penalty, so silly from Burnley, from Anthony. As a player, I can tell you that hold didn't cause him to go down, but it has been consistently called, and probably rightfully so, right? Because if you're Anthony, you're clearly beaten for that ball. That hold is consistent, and that's the only one, right? Where if it starts outside of the penalty area but continues into it, it's still a penalty. So I thought it was absolutely silly, and I would have given it, because Premier League has been consistent with that for the most part. The one earlier, I think, before you asked, when we had Walker and Mason Mount, I think it was a right decision from the referee not to give that as a penalty. So look, Manchester United had their chances. You look at the expected goals and all that was somewhere close to 3, although not too many clear cut, but just clear enough where you think that they should have scored and put that away. But in terms of the quality of the play, in terms of the mentality, which I think is the whole of it, right? When we think about Manchester United and the issues they've had over a decade now, it's that mentality. Once again, allowing a team, to get back, and we've seen that. I thought it was a positive, Alexis, with Arsenal. Yes, it's a loss, but it was not deserved. They should have won it, at least got some out of it. The rest we know. So there's still a lot of questions, and they'll take the win, but I think we'll be back here again more negative than I am right now.
Yeah, exactly. Like we said, I mean, it was just a 3-2 win at home for Manchester United, but so the mighty have fallen, I suppose, but still big win for morale, and on the back of what has been a very hard and controversial week for Ruben Amorim. One of the reasons why I suppose people have been calling for his head, Janusz, is because I remember Stevie Nichols said it even just yesterday when we did ESPN FC Live, that yes, he's still new to this, and yes, majority of Manchester United's problems are not his fault. However, in the space of time he's had, he's not exactly been able to improve them. In terms of today, we know that his tactics tend to come under.
I don't know. I may push back on Stevie a little bit, if you allow me.
Sure.
I mean, not that he's wrong. I mean, it's not all his fault, because for more than a decade, United have made all the wrong decisions, right? That you could possibly make. Wrong managers, panic transfers, patch-up work, and all of that. And he came in halfway through the season last year where he didn't want to, but now or never type of thing. He came in, but the way he's stubborn right now with his formation, I never enjoy coaches like. Look, I've been on record. I thought, my gut feeling was that Amorim was the right manager, right? I looked at what he's done with Sporting and the youth academy, and he's brought players up. Yes, you can say it's not the Premier League, it's Sporting, but I thought it was positive the way they play in Portugal and in Europe as well. But I'm starting to seriously doubt that already because, as I've mentioned, being so stubborn to play the players without width, which they have the players for that, but because now you have, two, three tens, right? You have to fit Cunha and you have to fit Mbomo and Mason Mount, players that like to be more central. And that system doesn't fit that. But you know what? I think we like the honesty from coaches, from managers, right? But I think that sometimes, it's too much. There are limits. When a manager tells you right away that he thinks of quitting, very often, that he hates them. But more importantly, I could, as a player, get past that. But when your coach tells you last season that you are probably your team is probably the worst in the history of Manchester United, that would have stuck in my head. That's not something I want to hear from a manager. So all that combined, all these three things, people will say, well, this is good. It's good for us. We have something to talk about. But that doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. There's still not enough quality in this team. And now you're talking Matheus Cunha injured, Mason Mount, I'm assuming injured. I don't know, what it is. I mean, he was very, very good in the first half, arguably, the best player on the pitch. So I'm assuming it's an injury. We know from Cunha that looks like a hamstring. I don't know Mason Mount, but international break helps, but it's not going to get them back ahead of Manchester City, Derby away, Chelsea at home, and Liverpool away. Not that far, really, when you look at the schedule. So I think there's structurally there continues to be an issue, but today they have to enjoy it, because that international break is going to feel much, much better as it would if it was a draw.
Yeah, they have to definitely enjoy this moment, because we know exactly how fleeting these moments can be in football. International break now, you did say at least a lot of players will be able to go play for their countries on international duties with a little bit more confidence after the week. Who stood out to you today? You mentioned Mason Mount, of course, in the first half. We know Matheus Cunha as well. Unfortunately, we're waiting to see exactly what the deal is there. But Mbomo as well, he was very busy. Amad Diallo was also very busy. Who stood out to you, Janusz?
You just mentioned them all. There's not much to it, because, we're talking about the win 3-2 at the death, right? But we look at the way you conceded goals. I mean, Dalot, yes, he did well on one goal going forward, but the crosses on one of the goals are not very good. Luke Shaw fell asleep on the first goal as well, right? So you're talking about Bruno Fernandes, who's good, but I always feel that he feels the effects of, if it's not Bruno Fernandes, it's nobody else, and that's why you see him frustrated, getting yellow cards. Another silly yellow card today. I think he sometimes forces things because he knows if he doesn't do it, nothing's going to happen, right? So on one hand, you look at Bruno Fernandes and you say to yourself, well, what would we have been if it wasn't for him, right? But on the other hand, I think if there are other players that you can rely on, where you feel that he can combine with and play with, that would have been probably a bonus for him, and that pressure wouldn't have been on his shoulders. So I hope that Mbomo plays better, because, he's been up and down, right? So far, he's just gotten there. Matheus Cunha looked good before the injury, so hopefully, the front line will carry them. But I think there's issues, and those that you've mentioned, there's really nobody else. I look at that lineup, nobody, De Ligt, I thought, has been good overall for the most part, right? When you look at the games, and I'm forgetting, the Grimsby game, because some of them, like Luke Shaw, Euro, they weren't even there. But so I'm going to forget that a little bit. But just in terms of Premier League, look, they've only won 2 games out of last 12 games at Old Trafford in the Premier League. You can't. Everybody comes to Old Trafford to win a game now.
Yeah.
Everybody comes in, and Burnley were a great example, because this wasn't one-way traffic by any means, right? They were always in it, and there were times in the game when they looked the part. So that, to me, is a big, big issue. Is today's win going to change that? Maybe, and it's a big maybe.